Hey, it's Aaron, the Metal Theologian. So it's kind of been a while, a few weeks. Shit just going on, Spencer's in town, that sort of thing. Actually, I'm really bad at making videos like shortly after I go on someone else's show. I deliberately made a video before I went up for Grown Man Record Night a few weeks ago, because I knew I'd just dick around forever after I got back, and I'd never do it. So anyway, normal shit going on, just normal life. I think I decided what my favorite boring record is. And it's this one. And some of you are going to get pissed off about this, but the fact is, I'm just telling the truth and you don't want to hear it. So I love this record. I genuinely love Cyborg by Klaus Schulze. I've listened to this more than a lot of things. But the times I find myself really reaching for this are like when I really have to focus. You know, like what I do at work, I've been doing for a long time. It's pretty easy for me a lot of the time. But like, so I can sort of, I work at home. I can listen to whatever, and if it distracts me, that's fine. But like when I really have to focus on something seriously, that's when I bust out Cyborg. And first of all, I mean, by all means, take a moment and enjoy how good this cover is. I would wear the shit out of that shirt. Whatever that fucking weird symbol is on there. And it has that cool old, like, sort of, ore-like design with the rounded corners and the images and shit. So, yeah, it totally wins for, sort of, that kind of cosmic krautrock appeal. But the problem with this record is it's super ambitious, and it's big, and it has electronics and all this other shit going on. And it's just kind of boring, It's atmospheric in a really cool way, but it's not something where you really sort of want to listen to. It's not something where it sort of draws you in, And it's not just like an instrumental thing either, because there are all these jazz records that totally draw you in, like when you're listening to them and sort of digging into it. It's not like you can't do that with this, And philosophically, I really believe that the whole enterprise of trying to even talk about music is futile and kind of ridiculous, right? Because there's no way to mediate between what's on the record and your brain other than your perception, right? I can't hook into that. I can tell you things around it and just try and describe how I'm feeling about it and like what it does for me. But if it doesn't also do it for you too, it's not going to land, you know what I mean? And so for that reason, if you go, oh man, this is the most interesting record on the planet, I love all that little shit going on in there, I'll be like, well, fuck, man, I should probably give this another listen. Listen to it a little more closely maybe again. But right now, this is a very highly regarded as my favorite boring record. I'm listening to Stranglers, by the way. The Stranglers have been a really kind of interesting band for me in my sort of musical development. Because, I never really disliked the Stranglers. I say that because the first time I heard the Stranglers, I didn't like them. But my first memory of hearing the Stranglers was noticing that a band that I didn't like on MTV was called that. Like, probably sometime in the early 80s, and I was like, if I didn't like the Stranglers and I was like 10, I'm not really going to pass judgment on myself, But when I started getting interested in punk, like 70s punk specifically, which is really all I got deeply into, I sort of got into these guys by proxy. Like there was a comp that someone had that had Get a Grip on Yourself on, and I was like, well, this is fucking fantastic, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, and that keyboard sound too, that's really kind of weird in a cool way and not just like kind of, dopey new wave keyboard, I guess I've always sort of been a fan of the weird sounds, Yeah, so over time I've just sort of come to like more and more. It's like I kind of liked the first record, and then like I rediscovered it later and loved it, And some of these sort of, these are the later ones in my head, like The Raven. This is like 79 or something. But back before I feel like I really got this band, and sort of what they were doing on albums after like the first one, basically. I don't know. It just makes sense. The songs make sense. The eccentricity of it makes a lot of sense to me. You know what I mean? And it really kind of goes to... This is like the topic of today's video. If this video actually has a topic, right? Is like... The shit that I tend to refer to as my punk section, which also has all the stoner rock shit in it. I got tired of most of like the regular punk shit, you know? And we're talking a lot of good records. I used to have a ton of like, I mean, I didn't have a lot of hardcore and shit. Like talking with like Eric Bauer and shit, I realized how little I knew about hardcore. You know, now I'm kind of like, yeah, I like Septic Death, you know? But that's about it, right? You know, fucking, I don't know anything compared to those, some of these guys. Him or Pat from Ground Zero Salem. Anyway, when I was really into the 70s shit, you know, I spent a lot of time in that kind of shit, but I really kind of got tired of, like, the straighter bands, like, you know, the Ramones or, like, the Adverts. You know, the Sex Pistols, obviously, but they only made one record. It's kind of, there's just not a whole lot of meat on that bone when you really sort of get down to it with the Sex Pistols, I think. You know, I kept the Misfits records and shit, but for the most part, I just kind of got tired of, like, just the straight punk. And I mentioned, you know, the Adverts the other one because these are, like, good records. These are records where, like, if I were at your house and you put them on right now, you'd be like, I really like this, you know what I mean? It's just, I never really reach for those. The ones that I tend to reach for are the ones that have a little something weird about them. And that little something weird is something I've been trying for years, actually, to figure out how to articulate. The Cleveland bands had it, 100%. That's why I love the Cleveland bands. Just about any band from Cleveland. And actually, one of the bands that got me on this, one of the records that got me on this is the fucking Pink album by the Pagans. Now, they're 45s, and there's another comp that came out that I have called Shit Street. They came out at the same time as this reissue, the Pink album. Those are cool punk rock singles, okay? But the Pink album has that something. There's a weirdness to it, you know what I mean? There's something about the color. There's something about the way they use the keyboards. There's something where, like, it sounds like it was recorded in, like, a garage with a lot of scrap metal lying around. You know what I mean? That sort of essence of it is, like, what really drives a band like the Pagans. And, you know, like, similarly, I was talking about the Diagram Brothers last time. Like, these guys just have it... With these guys, I also said it's purely in the songwriting. It's to a certain degree in the execution, too. But these guys, like, in a parallel universe, they would have just been a prog band. You know? Because the shit is just written in such a weird way. Like, their writing style is probably closer to Voivod than anyone else I can think of right off the top of my head. As far as how the instruments work together. The style, very different. These guys are not metal. You know what I mean? It's sort of influenced, you know, it's like punk influenced by that sort of, you know, Buzzcocks, that kind of sort of Manchester, you know, UK stuff. Am I just saying that because these guys are from Manchester? Maybe. I might be full of shit. Or half full. But it's the same sort of deal. You know, the Residents are kind of like the ultimate example in a way because they just, those songs couldn't have been more simple, but the color of the record was just so weird, you know, and just so somehow like hilarious and also not like so jokey that it's just kind of intolerable and annoying, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the thing about the Stranglers is that they kind of have it in different ways on different records. You know what I mean? There's a similar aesthetic that sort of binds it together, but the way they evolved, like, I can see where this record wouldn't have appealed to me when I was 20, you know? And I'm not saying that because I was 20, it's more just because of where I sort of was in my head. Or in my life, maybe. Speaking of where I was when I was 20, I've been listening to these guys kind of a lot. Sisters of Mercy. Now, talk about a band that was fucking hilarious. And, like, you know, it's like they just sort of get funnier and funnier. I love how they fucking played it straight. Like there have been other bands that had drum machines, but I can't think of another band that was so self-righteous about having a drum machine as the fucking Sisters of Mercy. So, yeah, Andrew Eldridge, man. And, like, the way they fucking ripped off those covers. You know, you take this shit for granted, but you've been a fan for a long time, right? But, like, I was talking about this with Coltrane, one who likes music, the other day. And I was talking about how this one was just, like, lifted directly from the cover of $1 Billion Babies. Like, the pattern and shit. And, like, as I was talking, I was like, I can't believe they did something so fucking ridiculous. You know, they didn't even resize it. Like, it fits. If you're holding a copy of $1 Billion Babies, this fits. Like, right over the record like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't have one anymore, so I kind of need a copy of $1 Billion Babies, but I want to find a complete one. But you know what else I kind of need to find a copy? It was fucking Floodland. Because I never got rid of First and Last and Always, and I kind of came around on Vision Thing later. Like, I hated Vision Thing when it came out. I thought it was crap. But about 5-6 years ago, I came around on, and I actually really like it. But I still didn't like Floodland. That one just seemed a little bit too sort of 80s, but I don't know, man. Maybe it's turning 50 or something, but this shit just doesn't bother me anymore. I just like the things that don't bother me, or that used to bother me, I don't give a fuck about. And things like the chorus on this Corrosion, that I thought were maybe a little bit cringe, just fucking make me smile now, you know? And like, not only that, like, I want to look around and see what's making other people cringe. You know what I mean? So anyway, so if you have an extra copy of Floodland you want to part with, let me know, because I'll make you an offer or something. Yeah, like this is the Alice 45. I also played this one a few times. It's a cool one. Everyone knows the Sisters of Mercy now. I knew this video was going to be fucking chaotic though, because the more I try to think about what I was going to do after 3 weeks, the more I was like, fuck it, I don't even know what I've been listening to, so I can't even do a what's spinning video really, can I? Here we go. Here's a record that has that X Factor I was talking about. Of course, they're from Cleveland. Styrene Money Band. Fucking radial arm saws. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen anyone else in the VC show this. I feel like I've seen one person show this, but I've never seen anyone else show the first 45. But I might have that backwards. I'm actually going to put that one on for a minute. That's sort of one of those that I kind of have to hype every time I pull it out, because it's so good, and people don't know it. Something about these custom labels is just cool too, these Stranglers labels. Yeah, I love the fucking Stranglers, man. Maybe not an obvious band for the metal theologian to love, but you know, you might not know from watching 4 or 5 of my videos how much the metal theologian loves Fats Domino either. Or Stevie Wonder. I hope you all know that when I talk about myself in the third person, I'm fucking around. I would be willing to bet that there isn't a bigger Stevie Wonder fan in the vinyl community than me. You know, I go on these fucking Beatles channels and shit. Well, I say that. I went on Davis's stream a couple weeks ago. I do shit like that once in a while, but you do go on Rachel once in a while. But you know, people always like, with the name, you gotta talk about metal, and it's like, dude, we can talk about Stevie Wonder if you want. My ankle's still a little fucked up from a few years ago, too. I'm trying not to complain about it too much, but if I'm acting a little weird, movement-wise. This is today's soda, by the way. Nothing really special, but it's been a while since I've had a cherry vanilla one, so. Yeah. I've kind of talked about this sort of X Factor thing before. You know, there's people who've like left me comments and recommended some good shit. Like someone put me on to Minimal Man. I don't remember who it was, but that's a pretty cool record. It kind of has that too. There are a couple records that I'm finding from around the same era that like aren't in. That I'm not finding in the places where I expect to find punk records. You know what I mean? And that's why I haven't at any point in this video said that I've been on a punk kick, because I haven't been at all, even by my sort of standards. It's been sort of a certain sound though, like sort of a certain line being walked between like shit that sounds artificial and shit that sounds really human, you know? I mean, 'cause that's what I hear in here. There's that really sort of synthetic sound of like the keys and like the sort of delay in the vocals. But there's something in the execution that's like imperfect to the point where you can really sort of hear it. There's a simplicity to it too, you know? Yeah. The Styrenes are one of the greatest fucking bands ever. Unfortunately, they really only made 2 45s that I think are brilliant. They made a couple more. There are some parts of the LP that are really good. There was that triple 10-inch that came out on Scat Records a while back called These Were Different Times. There was like a record each by the Mirrors, and one by the Electric Eels, and one by the Styrenes. All that stuff was good too. I think it kind of got shadowed by the Mirrors, and I think it got overshadowed by the Mirrors and the Eels on that. But these first 2 45s they made on Mustard Records are just fucking godly. I mean, seriously, some of the best records I own. And together, it's probably about 6 minutes of music, those 2 records. So I probably talked about this Conrad Schnitzler record before. And I actually might throw this on for a minute next too. Because This is another one that I don't hear people talking about. This kind of has a similar sort of sensibility to it, you know? This one has a vibe to it that in places I could almost call proto-industrial, but it really doesn't sound industrial at all, so. I don't know. I don't have anything better, though. I think and think and think. Shit. I'm getting this fucking thing off. At 45, that Styrene's one I just showed is one of the very first things I ever bought on eBay, actually. I mean, it wasn't like one of the first, but it was like one of the first 20, maybe. It was one of those things I thought I'd never get my hands on, but I got a copy of the first 45, the Drano in Your Veins one, before I left Cleveland. I'm actually going to start this on side 2, I think. All right. So here's another one that I wasn't familiar with until kind of recently. This is a relatively recent arrival here. This is the first Deutsche Amerikanische Freundschaft record. So probably better known as just DAF in English-speaking places, and probably in German-speaking places too. But on this one, they're still called Deutsche Amerikanische Freundschaft. And it's a really weird record, man. It's really abstract, but it really coheres into like songs, you know what I mean? But it's not like toe tappers and shit. It's you know, these guys are kind of popping in the 80s a little bit, although now I'm inclined to sort of revisit their catalog, even though I haven't heard anything since about the 80s, so who the fuck knows, you know? But, I mean, honestly, it's kind of a shitty band name, though, so I never really jumped to, seek out the other shit, but, I was partially inspired because Bureau B did a reissue of this, and I looked it up, and, I think it's a relatively recent one. I saw that originals didn't cost much more, so I was like, well, fuck it, man, I'll just get the real one now. Anyway, it's a really cool record, also similar sort of vibe, where there's... It's sort of minimal, there's sort of an artificialness to it, but there's that humanness to it, too. There's a lot of it is in the vocals here. Just the way he sings this, too, is kind of weird, too. Oops. And, you know, I just want to find more and more of this kind of stuff. This is why I love the Twinkies, this is why I love Simply Saucer. Oh, actually, here's one that's a much newer record, but this one actually came as a bonus from some shit that I bought on Discogs several weeks ago when I was doing the stoner thing, which I still kind of am. I mean, I just played this fucking Los Natas one earlier. Yeah, but this fucking thing, man. So Satan Satyrs kind of sound a little bit, you know, biker as far as like the shit I was gravitating towards. So this wasn't one of the bands I sort of latched onto. I mean, obviously this is a fantastic cover, right? And the whole like presentation of this is fucking great. I mean, come on. And then check this out. This is something I don't think I've seen before on an old record. But they actually did a fucking wallet-style cover on this. You see that shit? And this record is, you know, it's like 2020 or something. It's not an old record. So I don't know who the fuck they could even get to, like, glue this shit together for in that configuration, you know? 2014. Anyway, this record, man, is a weird fucking record, man. It has all these weird, like, organs and shit on it and that. And it's just, it looks like it's gonna be, like, a straight, like, sort of, you know, stoner, or, like, sort of like a desert rocker, you know what I mean? And it goes off in all these weird, sort of, kind of psychedelic directions and is way, I mean, it'd be a stretch to call it a space rock record. But it kind of feels more like you're watching a Hammer horror movie, I think, than I expected. With sort of a little emphasis on the weirdness of it, you know what I mean? And sort of the style, if that makes sense, around the Hammer thing. what I'm trying to say is the style as opposed to the triteness of doing something like rehashing a Dracula story or something, right? So you can look at the Hammer films and go, like I pretty much did when I was a kid, and go like, God, I don't need to watch another fucking Wolfman movie, you know what I mean? Because that's kind of lame, you know? But at least, you know, when there's just something new to it, right? I mean, you get bored with that. But Hammer had his own style, you know what I mean? And that's the analogy with Satan Sater's record. Yeah, here's another cool one, actually. Completely irrelevant, but I just happened to find this. Actually, I kind of love it. This happens once in a while when you amass some shit. I didn't know I had this fucking record. I just found it over in the S's. But, yeah, there's a fucking Sabbath. I think that's supposed to be called Mayans Hill EP. Is that what that is? I mean, is that even a fucking word? Trying to show off that little stamp on there. I'm pretty sure there's a nuclear war now deal. But it's a cool piece, man. I mean, it's just like a piece of paper in here. A little lyric sheet in there. Oh, I thought that was a nuclear war now logo, but it's not. I don't know. Realistically, that's where I would have gotten something like this. Point is, it's fucking cool to find a record you didn't know you had. Especially when it has kind of an awesome cover. Yeah, the sound effects on this, man, are so simple but so effective. I'm really proud to say that I was fortunate enough to have seen Cluster live before the dude died. It was back in the 90s. It was at, where the fuck was it? I can't remember the name of the place. It was in San Francisco. It was in kind of a weird place. It was near, the Great, you know, maybe it was the Great American Music Hall. I'm pretty sure it was the Great American Music Hall. I think it was a really cool show. They were really fucking old. I mean, it's funny, they were probably like in their 60s or something at the time, and like I was like a lot younger, and it seemed like, oh my god, these guys are still playing. And it was a lot more sort of like the later shit that they played too. It wasn't like the weird like Cluster 2 stuff. It was more like Sobi So-So and Sukutsai, but it wasn't just like new age, and that was the only thing I'd been worried about. It was a great show, man. I'm really glad I had the chance. Here's a funny little story, and then I think I'll wrap this up because I've kind of rambled for my normal quota. But sort of speaking of shit that I hadn't played since high school, this record, I actually still had from when I was in high school, unlike a lot of these. And actually, there's something. There's a fucking sticker in there. You know why that's in there? Because it's like from the music library. Oh shit, I just let it give away my name. Anyway, my mom gave me a roll of these stickers. I was still living at home. I was like 16. And like, I kind of felt bad, but I was like, I don't want to put these fucking things on my records. It'll fuck up the covers, you know? But she like thought she was like nice, so like that was sort of the compromise. So I don't really have any of those anymore. I tore them out of some sense, but like I was going to get ready to pick that one out early, and I was like, ah, fuck it, man, I don't give a shit. But here's the funny thing about the Reptile House. This record, in my memory, had a lot groove. And I remember it used to piss me off. Because every time I'd play it, I'd forget about it, right? And then I'd like, sort of, it would hang, and I'd be like, God damn it, I'd get up from whatever I was doing and go over and like, fix it, right? So I played this record, no lock groove. I was like, what the fuck? I don't realize, it must be because I have a different record player than I had the last time I played it. I've had this record player for at least 15 years. So there we go. And the one before that was also a B&O, so I think it probably would have been the same. The one that I'm thinking I must have been using, I replaced in like 1990. So yeah, so that's all it would have been. But of course I still know every fucking note, because that's what music does to you, right? That's why we do silly shit like sit here and talk about it. You know, one thing I don't think people appreciate is why if there is a disproportionate number of metal channels on YouTube as far as people who talk about this shit, is because metal was so stigmatized for so many years. I mean, really until just maybe 10 years ago or so, something like that. Everyone looked down on metal as stupid music and credit shit on it. So the people who liked it were the people who are the most likely to have a chip on their shoulder about it, and the people who are most likely to want to proselytize about it. And here I am, and here's Scott Waters, and here's Harmless Rebel, and here's all these other people that y'all love. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.